the sunshine of a happy youth, golden days full of innocence and full of truth. In our hearts we remember them all else above, golden days, days of youth and love. How we laughed with a gaiety that had no sting, looking back through memory's haze. We will know life has nothing sweeter than its springtime, golden days when we're young, golden days.
As stars twinkling in the brilliance and glory of God's light, so do myriad hearts upon the planet release torrents of holy prayer into the cosmic ethers, prayers of supplication, gracious ones, rising unto God. From the manifold religions of the world, devotees are pouring out that fragrance of communion, which in itself provides a connection between God and man, and there is no mortal qualification that has any power to disturb the prayers of the faithful or the sincere. Let us then this night make clear that there is never any quality of virtue that is lost. If there be any virtue within the heart of men, it is a golden nugget of priceless love, wisdom, and power flame within the consciousness of man, which is so qualified because of its own inherent divine nature, which can never be requalified by the human. Let us then, precious hearts of light, make clear unto all that there is never any excuse for individuals holding the concept of misqualification governing the energy released from the hearts of the sincere and faithful. So long as individuals can remember in their supplications to say or to feel within the domain of their heart and being, not my will, but thine be done. This is the loving panacea which holds inviolate protection within the hearts of all who seek God, the fullness of divine justice in the prayer of the individual. Regardless of whether or not individuals know exactly what they should pray for or what they should ask for, if they will prefix it or end it with those words, not my will, but thine be done, all of the holy energy charged into the prayers and rising from myriad hearts across the face of the planet will bear the stamp of God's holy will, and will thus be answered, even if the answer should be contrary to the supplication. For the will of God will thus be established in the hearts of men, and this is the reason why the Master Jesus declared unto the disciples of his time that they should so pray. And to this day, individuals do not understand why one group is releasing its energy, so to speak, against another group, and saying unto the other group, you are not with us. You must understand, gracious ones, and there is no contradiction in this idea, that energy must be reversed when it is sent out unto individuals. But where it comes to prayer and supplication, the desire of divine unity as the dream of God must be idealized within the mind and being of the sincere disciple in the light. Now then, precious ones, as we draw near unto you to carry forth the instruction of the ascended masters, it is to give you your precious freedom which you are seeking. But you ought to understand clearly that the will of God for each individual is that they should rise moment by moment toward the skies, that they should each day accomplish some purity of motive and God design which will propel them just a step more at least toward their own dominion over outer conditions. There are times, precious ones, when the forces of shadow and of the carnal mind will attempt to intrude into the consciousness of the aspirant the idea that they are ready to spectacularly make their ascension in the light and find escape from all of the problems of the world of form. Let me hasten to disabuse your mind of these concepts, not that it is the intention of heaven to deprive you of the blessings of your ascension, but rather the ascension is a process which does not culminate of necessity in the spectacular, but rather in the natural miracle of man's overcoming of death and over all hindering conditions. Let all understand then that more important even than the ascension, and you must put this in the right framework of reference, is the idea that individuals will ascend each day in some small way so as to ready themselves for that state of consciousness which is the consciousness of heaven. Consider yourselves, precious ones, in the light of cosmic honor. Consider the conditions which presently surround you. Consider the state of your own achievement, of your God design. And as you find that you fall short of that God design, recognize and understand that your duty is to overcome the falling short of the God design and to establish within the force field of your personal identity all that precious accomplishment and victory over all outer conditions, which is the divine intent of God for you. When this is accomplished, it will never be up to you then to know the day or the hour, for the Father holds this idea in his own consciousness and will release to you the mighty cosmic tides of energy which will enable you to rise in the glory of your ascension, simply because there are no longer any ties which are able to bind you to outer conditions. For the fiat of the karmic board, enabling those who have transmuted 51% of their karma and have met the other standards of the precious karmic board, are the criteria by which every individual is granted the dispensation of their ascension in the light. And there is never any deviation from these laws, which are the same for one as for all. Then let it be clear that the powers of darkness, so-called, will from time to time attempt to wangle individuals and cause them certain distress of mind, carrying them first into the heights of great expectations and then down into the degradation of sinister strategies. It is always the responsibility of the students of the light to understand that their overcoming is an act of cosmic grace, to understand that the Father, who sees the prayers of all mankind in secret, knows the full intent of their heart and will certainly reward them according to their works and for the virtue which they have externalized. It is not then the spectacular achievements of a moment that count, precious ones, but the spectacular achievements of every moment when individuals overcome the smallest little iota of substance in their world which hinders them from the mighty acceptance of cosmic deliverance from outer conditions. Outer conditions must yield to the power of your presence, and your presence must be invoked. Outer conditions must yield in toto, and you must recognize your responsibility to place yourselves in the hands of God and to comprehend that He and He alone is able to give you the freedom for which your souls hunger. You can never expect that this will be found in outer conditions, but outer conditions will always seek to overcome mankind and to prevent him from having the freedom and blessedness of his ascension in little ways, for this is how the ascension is gained, and the great masters have all passed through this pathway. Do you not know how that the great master Saint Germain pointed out quite some time ago how that a tremendous amount of acts and deeds of a virtuous nature must be accomplished and stand behind every ascension in the light? When individuals submit themselves to the powers of darkness and fill their minds with illusions, which in effect are illusions of grandeur to the outer self, they are actually producing a condition which hinders their ascension and keeps their consciousness upon the outer ego. Those who truly desire to find their freedom will understand and comprehend that in the eyes of God, your smaller victories are just as important as the final one, for they are the contribution and total effect of your life stream as it pours out its love to God toward the smallest of his blessed creatures who inhabit this planet, or the cosmic beings to whom you pour fountains of adoration. Let it be clear then that all who would achieve their freedom and know their victory here and now and in all time to come must reckon with the power of God that they invoke in their world, that they adhere to, and that they honor. Honor must be given gladly, freely, and joyously. Whether or not you are given some outer acknowledgement of the condition is not so important as to recognize that you have adhered to the inner law of your being, and thus when the inner law is served, your freedom will become automatic. It is simply just a matter of time, precious ones, the time necessary to make the proper application, and then the law will fulfill itself and will come about as a demand of the inner self, as a demand of the karmic board, and as a demand of all of the heavenly hierarchy. No one can deny to you that which is rightfully your own, but you yourself can deny to yourself much that is your own through misunderstanding, through misapprehension, through disturbing outer conditions, through permitting yourselves to become preys and tools of those entities and conditions which try to seek entrance into your world and find the smallest chink in your armor. I say they have no power, but can always be vanquished by the light of holy wisdom and the understanding that you belong wholly to God. Whether or not you are ascended at this moment is not so important, for precious ones, the ascension in the light is the automatic gift of God's grace, but you are already recipients of his grace, and you are already in the divine image at inner levels. It simply remains for you to externalize it according to the best of your ability and according to the power of invocation which is in your world. Now I would speak a word also on transmutation. I would speak to you concerning the necessity of transmutation. Individuals are not aware many times of the human density, of the accretion of mortal effluvia in their world. They do not realize how the very pores of their being are clogged with this substance. Much of it, of course, is introduced into mankind by his acceptance of the laws that other people have set up for him down through the cycles of the years. But by acceptance, mankind make these laws their own and laws of their own being. Therefore, it is the responsibility of every student of the light to repel every human idea about themselves which others may hold, and to recognize only the power of their divine God idealism, that idealism which is the very thoughts that God holds, as his cosmic energy releases it into the force field of mankind, and as they accept it, they become changed from glory unto glory, even as by the Spirit of the Lord. And this is cosmic wisdom. This is cosmic strength. This is cosmic God design. This is the line of mankind's perfection, which leads directly from the energy within your heart, tied to the threefold flame, up then through your holy Christ self, directly to the heart of your presence, and thence to the whole hierarchy and the great power of God that is contacted by the great central sun messengers and those who bear the point of light contact directly to the heart of the great central sun. You should understand that the Lord of life and light and love has no other design for any man upon this planet except the design which he has held for all and for the living Christ. You should understand that this great tide of love is not aggressive energy, but positive energy. You should understand the difference between aggressive energy and positive energy. Positive energy is the light of divine intelligence. It never acts in order to perform retaliation against individuals, but it always acts to create constructive spirals and cycles. Aggressive energy may seem to be positive, but many times it is releasing into the atmosphere the feelings of humanity themselves against some individual. This ought to be clear to all, that all may have the benefit of creating constructive cycles of light in the cosmic ethers that will accrue to their own credit by the correct use of energy through the instruction of the ascended masters. Let all understand that the great highways of the Spirit are not always smooth, but as pioneers acting within the wilderness of your own human creation, you must from time to time recognize the need to beat down the bushes, so to speak, of mortal reason and the thorns of mortal confusion and all of those conditions which are not created by your presence. When you beat these conditions down and keep your eyes upon the goal, you are proceeding through the wilderness of human creation, and you have the full right and power to set that human creation ablaze by the light of your own God design and by the cosmic flames of the ascended masters, which produce transmutation everywhere you walk. When individuals recognize the responsibility they have to life to hold within themselves a focus as a blowtorch of tremendously concentrated light, they will understand clearly that through positive, constructive energy, they are able not only to set free themselves, but those who are in their immediate surroundings. I do not say that every individual with whom you come in contact and to whom you blaze a flame will immediately become an ascended being or begin to pursue the pathway of light which you have chosen. But I do say that there is never so much as a feather of light energy that is sent out by an individual in a constructive manner that does not bear some fruit, and where it fails to receive a response within a given individual, and where that individual rejects it, it returns doubly empowered to the one who sent it forth as more constructive energy bearing a greater imprint and stamp of ascended master God control and the power of victory's flame than it had before it was sent out. And thus there is a gathering momentum on the part of those individuals who understand the meaning of Christ's victory as one deed after another that is slanted and directed to the supremacy of soul purpose. Spell it any way you wish, S-O-L-E or S-O-U-L. It means the same thing, for it is the solar purpose of God, the infinite power of the light that does not fail to produce the perfection when the clouds of human nonsense are cleared away and the dazzling sun of man's own divine reality peeps through and then bursts through the clouds. Understand this then. Comprehend it within. Regard it as the truth of your being, and watch how you can cause the darkness that surrounds the world of man to vanish as you approach. You will be a blazing sun, carrying the battle of the noontide rays of cosmic perfection to mankind who sit in darkness waiting the appearance of the dazzling light of cosmic perfection. It does not matter that they recognize the intensity of your blaze, for the light will produce a rays everywhere that the rays are sent out. Do you see, precious ones, how that the law functions regardless of individuals' idea of whether or not it will work? Of course, I acknowledge that faith can produce a greater work than where there is non-faith. But wherever the work is done, there is bound to be some response evoked. Yet individuals ought to recognize the need to accept in their feeling world and thinking world all that is the light. For as they accept it, there will be produced in their mind and consciousness the good seed of spiritual fruit which falls from the heavenly courts into the world at large, and is the divine purpose made manifest through you one and all. But, precious ones, there is ever a need for mankind to understand how that the energy of the ego, of the outer self, is only a going out of energy without purpose except to return to the individual and glorify that individual with some particular quality which imparts to him, as separate and apart from other individuals, a special quality to attract attention to his own life stream. This is never the plan of God, for all energy is created by God to give man his freedom, and his freedom can never lie in the domain of the human. Individuals can never find their freedom by attracting glory to their outer self. The only way they can ever have their freedom, and hence their ascension in the light, is to overcome whatever conditions in their world are destructive. And these conditions must come under the domination of their great God self. And it is in the victory of mankind over darkness by the light and the power thereof that there is a demonstration made for all to see of the power of the living Christ. This is the reason why Jesus made his ascension from the hill of Bethany, because he had clearly demonstrated by his life the perfectionment, the at-one-ment, the magnificence of divine design. And when individuals today seek to manifest expressions of a human nature and an outward nature, they will always attract attention or seek to attract attention to themselves. And they should understand that this will never bring forth the fruit which they long to have. In reality, precious ones, there is always a terrible inadequacy in human living. Individuals feel, because of their separation from their presence, the terrible inadequacy of the hour, and they recognize that in mortal thought and feeling they do not have the conditions which will give them their victory and power to overcome. Therefore, they seek to attract attention to themselves as a substitute manifestation for the victorious accomplishments in the light, which themselves are the shining diadem jewels in the crown of each one's cosmic Christ-illumined accomplishment. See, witness, and behold, then, the holy wisdom which I am releasing, and pay ye heed to it, and surely, as God liveth, thou shalt see by the fruits that manifest in your world that the ascension lies not far from you, because you have evoked the divine response through nobility of soul and through a lack of fear, but a sense of absoluteness regarding the intent of God for thyself. When you develop a sense of absoluteness, a sense of absolute communion with God, when you recognize the absoluteness of his presence and the absoluteness of his law and the power of that law to absolve the soul of involvement in mortal error and its coils, you will find that slipping out of the coils is not so difficult at all. For the coils are always coils of energy which mankind have misqualified, in most cases the miscreant being the individual himself and not another. However, because there are so many vain thoughts in the world that as hapless missiles fly through the air, mankind from time to time become victimized by accepting the tramp thoughts of others and the negative energy patterns of others, which fly abroad in the world as hostile arrows and produce the pain and suffering which mankind reap and know not the reason why. Let me then make clear tonight, on behalf of the great goddess Meru who stands by my side, that our hope is always to give that instruction to mankind which will be the practicality of the hour. And when we give our instruction, although we may have heard it 1,000,000 times, and although you could even have heard it 1,000,000 times, perhaps, it is not the hearing of the word that counts, but it is always the doing of the word that produces your freedom. Recognize then that so long as there is a need or a dire need among mankind of the power of overcoming victory, we will continue to play and harp upon one string or several strings, depending upon the needs of the hour, so that individuals may find their freedom, because they must be treated for the condition that ails them, in order that they may be corrected and that their feet be returned to the proper path of cosmic assessment, where the law itself becomes respected by their life stream enough to obey it. Have you ever thought, precious ones, upon this very subject, that individuals do not think enough upon the law of God in order to obey it, whereas they think very muchly of the law of their own being and the assertion of the ego, and therefore obey the mandates of the mortal self, and all of its pilferage of the divine ideals occurs because they do it. And therefore the cause and core for their failures lies within the domain of themselves, some of it being but the accretion of neglect. If you will ponder upon that thought for a moment, blessed ones, the accretion of neglect, you will see and perceive that time and again in your lives you have clearly seen a certain thing ought to be done, and you have neglected it and excused yourself from doing it simply because of some outer condition. This then does pile up, and as mounting debts, individuals find that they have a momentum not of overcoming and of the good sense of the saints, but a momentum of yielding to patterns of human discord and human neglect. Why do you think, precious ones, that individuals neglect to come and hear the dictations of the ascended masters when they know the precious instruction that is being given forth, and they are aware in many cases of the tremendous radiation that accompanies that release? Do you think it is because they do not believe in us? Do you think it is because they do not believe in themselves? What is the reason, precious ones? It is in most cases, I think you will find, a momentum of neglect which puts not first things first, but last things first, and therefore puts man last in his ascension and the rituals that would otherwise have given him his freedom long ago. I say these things to you tonight because they are keys to your freedom and will bring you the perfection which you long for, producing nothing but perfection in your work. Ponder it. Consider it, not only tonight, but for many a day. Put it to use, and watch how by little rises the great hill of victory is climbed and overcoming manifest for all who will hear and obey. God and Goddess Meru, together with my own life stream of service and dedication to holy wisdom and wisdom's flame, salute you in God's name. brothers and sisters of the divine heart, as I gaze upon the world and the manifold hands extended in supplication to the heart of God, I am reminded again and again that all have come forth from the one source, and that all should strive to return to that heart, which is the expansion of the domain of life, encompassing all worlds and systems of worlds by the limitless dimension of his heart of grace, which, while it is considered to be by mankind occupying one portion of space, in reality is the fullness of all that is. And therefore God's heart is everywhere. When men understand that supplication cannot be answered where discord dwells within the force field of the thought and feeling world, they will clearly understand why some prayers go unanswered, and why there are times when the laws which man has imposed upon himself act as a barrier to divine grace, reinforced by the sovereign will of man, which was the gift of God. Perhaps there are those whose wisdom and analytical ability would question as to whether or not it was the best part of wisdom to give unto mankind such freedom as they presently have, and which they often do not enjoy. Those who are the theologians of heaven are not tethered to a certain round of mortal concepts, but by reason of right knowledge and right experience, clearly behold the cosmic mind and the many far-flung ramifications of that mind. For example, while upon your planet, telescopic probings of the universe, engaged in by the scientists of your world, do present a picture of cosmic organization to the scientists and people of the world, there is always limitation, even in probing an object so near at hand as your moon. The lunar surface is being probed again and again by mankind, and through the media of your television probes, you are developing what seems to be a correct and true picture, at least in part, of the moon's surface, enhancing these ideas which you have held formerly, and conveying to your minds some concept that seems to represent progress. I think, however, that if mankind were to stand upon the lunar surface and gaze round about them, that which they would see and perceive would again represent another picture. It is always good, precious ones, to speculate through the media of the senses, far-flung worlds, as El Morya has said, but to actually possess that knowledge firsthand by the intimate cosmic experience of journeying to these worlds is another set of experiences and circumstances which make you able to answer from a first-hand standpoint the questions that otherwise could represent the realm of theoretical comprehension. in this hour when the needs of mankind are multiplied, both of a physical nature and a spiritual side. We feel the tremendous emptiness of the earth. For it is one thing, precious ones of the light, to be able to have a gift of God, and it is another thing to be able to use it wisely. The correct use of the gifts of life, when rightly appropriated, will enable you to live and expand the domain of your consciousness to realms presently undreamt of. You have heard it said, "Eye has not seen, nor ear heard, nor has entered into the heart of man the things which God has prepared for them which love him." To those who are the called according to his purpose. Let it be clear then to every son of heaven that the high calling of God, which resounds from your holy Christ self, is the intimate perception of life which will enable you to penetrate the veil of mortal illusion and see for yourselves that God has indeed prepared gifts of the use of energy which are so far beyond all that contemporary use has brought into manifestation, as if mankind were yet beyond even the dark ages and the early beginnings of life upon this planet. Primeval and primitive would seem your current use of energy if you were able to see beyond into the realm penetrating the veil of the senses. Glimpses afforded mankind from time to time have stirred the imagination and have fired the soul, so that men keep on keeping on, inspired by the hopes which they hold so dear, and which act as cosmic spurs to create a new sense of adventure. We accept these spurs as necessities of the moment, but we trust that a residual faith within the hearts of men will be quickened and will flash forth into the atmosphere the understanding of the immanence of Christ to every man. This will create a new pattern, not in the form of a spur, but in the form of the magnitude of infinite love, when that love is known and can be felt by the being of man. As it is now, the limited scope of mortal senses do not afford mankind the clarity and reality of infinitely handling the body and bones of the living God. Transfer this thought for a moment to the identity and being of self. Understand and be not dumb, unseeing creatures, but those who can, at least in the domain of consciousness, accept the word of one who has beheld. That the being of man is in reality, when known to its fullest and uttermost parts, the very identity of God. When the limbs of self are perceived as the limbs of the infinite, who shall stop the flight of the infinite arrow to make its mark upon the infinite, and to renew capacities within the souls of men which have been again and again held down, repressed, and smothered by mortal discord, putting out the fire of regeneration and leading men to the consciousness of the grave. Strong is the forte of divine wisdom above. Strong are the bands of cosmic love and the bonds that bind the soul to the soul of God. But he can take into his body no decaying substance, gracious ones, and the simple, pure facts of life involving separation and sense of separation from deity are in this corruptible sense, which men must destroy and put on the sense of incorruption. When this mortal self shall have put on incorruption, then shall be brought to pass the saying, death is swallowed up in victory. O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory? And again, these words repeated enable the consciousness of mankind to arise out of mortal limitation. When Helena, P. Blavatsky, was devoted to us as a disciple, all the illumination which we sought to convey through her embodied the reality of this one solar manifestation of incorporeal man. Corporeality and decaying substance go hand in hand. The fruit of the carnal mind, which falls also not far from the parent tree, is death. And the fruit of the mind of Christ is life. And this life cannot be denied. It is irrevocable truth. The living flame consciousness of the penetrability of Almighty God's love ray, the power of the infinite law that on Sinai's heights did thunder forth and reveal to Moses the law called the 10 Commandments. These thou shalt nots, in and through the veil of cosmic reason, descend as the Shekinah glory upon the ark of the covenant of being. For when the hand of the infinite archer traces upon the cosmic void the mighty geometric figure of the cosmic arc, and the individual identity blends at the point of meeting with the cosmic arc, then there is produced the great flame, revealed of old to the chin, and to those adepts made known somewhat in the book called Dweller on Two Planets by Philos the Tibetan. We who have spoken to mankind over the centuries and have sought to assuage the hungers of the heart of man recognize that again and again individuals dabble in our laws, which are their laws, dabble in the laws of the infinite, which are the laws of God, and the laws of overcoming love and victorious Christ radiance, and secure not for themselves so much as 1/2 an iota of cosmic progress. Is it any wonder if embodied in mortal form our eyes would not grow dim with tears, but by reason of comprehension of the light and the infallible goal brought to the attention of all mankind from within, by reason of the strength of the divine law, and by reason of our presence with God, we are able to hold for the world the last full measure of that infinite devotion which will give mankind their freedom when they desire it enough. When the law is desired with the fullness of men's hearts, they cannot long separate themselves from us in divine intent. They may seem to be separate from us. They may feel that we are behind the veil. They may have the mortal sense in dominance in their world 97% of the time. But when the hunger for the law mounts up to a great degree, and they understand the need to cut themselves loose from the sediments and deposits of mortal lure and vanity, they will do so, and there will be a leaping response within their being, even within that 3%, until the whole self will be stirred and the sedimentary deposits brought to the surface as precipitate, untransmuted substance, which will then clamor to the great law for transmutation and the fulfillment of the hallowed law of life, the law of each man's being. But time is not immortality. Time is a segment of man's allotted portion. And during that portion and its tenure, mankind were intended to seize upon each opportunity as upon the precious potential at the end of the rainbow of promise, and utilize to the fullest extent all of the wonders of the law, which seems to meander across the whole gamut of man's expression and to provide a panacea in every precious unguent of a specific nature which comes to the attention of mankind and is provided in every area of life to lend surcease from distress and let peace flow and command life to obey. Throughout the world today, there are many breakthroughs looming on the scientific horizon which promise to bring about an end to physical pain to a great degree and prolong life in physical embodiment to a larger extent. But we ask you now, in the name of Almighty God, if mankind today were to have their life extended 1,000 years beyond its present span, according to the order of things as they now are, would mankind not themselves ask to have the golden bowl broken and the silver cord sundered because of the terrible unhappiness which would come into manifestation in their world? I ask you this in the name of God, for it is that hallowed wisdom which shows that outside the domain of the glowing, radiant Christ manifestation in all of its vibrant, natural self, which takes dominion over the forces of nature and impels mankind to reach out and expand in the heavenly domain, what else is there for mankind to actually attach their energies to? Shall they tie them to the vain and broken promises of mankind who have sought to lure mankind into the commercial marts, until the cry goeth forth, O Babylon, Babylon, how long shalt thou stand? And mankind are aware that Babylon is indeed already fallen. How art thou fallen, O thou material substance creation, which sought by the lures of mortal vanity to raise thyself up unto the heavens itself, and to declare unto the children of men, I am all, when thou knowest not that thou art naked, when thou knowest not that thou art indeed without life and bereft of intelligence at all, for all of thy fingerings upon the strings of man's numbered lives are as nothing before the infinite melodic, harmonic manifestation of the music of the spheres and the thoughts of God that pass beyond the years, flowing radiant manifestation out into the universal spheres where harmony does abide and does expand, passing through the earth with the cosmic rays and demanding life to obey, whereas life resisteth and refuses, and thus there cometh into manifestation all that which confuses and produces illusions of temporary sense happiness and vanity, which as a vapor upon the window passeth away and is no more. Precious ones, of the light of God that does not fail, you cannot know the great love that we have within ourselves. And as I am here today standing upon your platform, I want you to know that I am this moment arrayed in the self-same garments which I wore as St. Francis of Assisi. I have not come to you in the radiant, sparkling garments of the vibratory action of the cosmic light, but I have come in the form which I wore as St. Francis of Assisi, and I am today commanding the Christ radiance that is within your heart, the mighty burst of cosmic song that is the melodic effort of the soul, to resound within your consciousness, that you may feel the love and bliss and compassion which we have for the stranded human beings upon this freighter of darkness as it sails through the cosmic realms of outer space, and denies the God which brought it to the place where it could have manifested long ago, the mighty glow and fire of his radiant heart, and all that fire of love which would make of man a part of heaven and its domain of infinite capacity to do and to be all that God is, and to see, perceive how they should live, and again give, as God does, the self and all the majestic power of that self to the world and fallen brothers everywhere, raising them into the air of Christ's majestic comprehension, there to see that heaven in all of its divine intent will help them now, by God intent, to ever clear the way for life to flow back to God's heart, to know and be the peace of all eternity that flows and manifests through nature bold, to win for men's hearts a goal of radiant, inspirational, cosmic intent, bent upon achieving it now, and yet denied because of sinful mortal vow, to flesh and flesh intent, and all that mankind have done of destructive bent. O precious ones, let flow now through your being the thoughts of the compassionate Christ for mankind. Recognize how deeply dyed is the dark stain upon the souls of men who have denied him again and again, and have turned from him with sinful bent and careless intent. Oh, recognize it now, for as there is a stirring within you, we can communicate it to the world and stir them too, for they are here right with you. Ladies and gentlemen, won't you please be seated? As we take our leave of you, it is with a compassionate reminder that we have not changed through the years in our divine intent to help mankind. Rather, we are just as strong, if not stronger than ever. And in the eyes of God, our efforts are multiplied beyond even our comprehension. This may seem, for a moment, to make you wonder why we would not be able to have the same comprehension as God. Let me tell you, precious ones, when you win your ascension, you will then clearly see that the veils that exist between the infinite capacity of God and the self are not only in existence in the unascended realm, but even above. For God is indeed infinite, and he has within himself living room for the highest souls. One star differeth from another star in glory, even so is the resurrection from the dead. Lo, I am come to give mankind life, and that life is to be more and more abundantly. My peace I give unto you in his name. And as Jesus joins me upon this platform, radiating his flame into the world, I pray that my words spoken here may not be in vain. And the sign of the cross between God and man, we are dismissed in the bonds of God's infinite light.